Some people find Shadal too avant-garde for them, so to speak, too out there, far afield. But
Yeah.
I don't consider what he's saying to be far afield at all. I don't think it's impossible that such a mistake crept in for he was not just suggesting by way of svara, he's showing you, look at the shape of the letter aleph here and the shape
Yeah.
of the tau in that script, and you see they're so close, it's very easily mistaken that instead of an aleph you will end up with a tau. And then when the text was transposed into the Ketava Shuri that we have, so we have the mistaken letter, and then we have to search for a meaning. Whereas Shadal says if you make this assumption, everything makes perfect sense. All right, so you can understand it as you wish. On the one, I should add, on the one hand, it is beyond incredible the extent to which Am Yisrael has been able for thousands of years, literally, to maintain the integrity of the texts of our foundational texts, the Torah, the Nevi'im, the Ketuvim, and later, of course, also even the texts of the Torah Ba'al Peh, which were eventually committed to writing, the Mishnah, the Talmud, etc. Although the precision and the care there is less than with regards to Torah Bichtav. But again, nevertheless, we have the Mishnah, we have ancient manuscripts you can see, and yes, all sorts of mistakes or changes crept in, but we can establish almost always the correct reading by looking into these things, by investigation, and by understanding these matters. If of course a person chooses not to know, like many Bahurei Yeshiva today might prefer to, if you tell them, well, the real Nusach, the real Girusa and the Gemara here is Aleph Bet Gimel. And once you understand that, and how I know this is for the following reasons, Dalad Hey, well, and therefore this whole sugya now makes perfect sense when you understand exactly what's being said here. But the mistaken girusa led to a misinterpretation. So some people break out in a rash as soon as you say this to them. But that's not wise. They're simply not wise. All the Rishonim discuss the fact that there are differing girsaot and ushaot with regards to the lashon of the Talmud, of the Mishnah, of the Tosefta, etc. And the fact is, this also exists, although to a much lesser degree, in the Tanakh. And again, you can find the Radak sometimes making reference to the fact that in some books that we have here in Sfarad, he says, and the books from Sfarad were usually considered the most accurate. He says that it reads in this way, instead of this letter, it's that letter, and it makes a difference. In other words, there's nothing here that should really cause anyone to be that shocked. But some people nevertheless prefer to believe a kind of fairy tale story that it's impossible that any inaccuracy, any mistake crept in anywhere into, especially in the Tanakh. But that's not true. Look, we even have examples in the Sifrei Torah that we have before us today. There are 9 places, 9 letters difference between a Sefer Torah Ashkenazi and a Sefer Torah Temani. All right, for example, there's not many letters out of the whole Torah, but there are 9 instances where there's a difference in the letter. It's the same word, but it's a different letter. We all know that you have the word Psu'a Daka, Daled Kaf, Aleph or Daled Kaf He. What should it be? Well, this is already discussed by the Rishonim. The Ramah with the Hey discusses this. This is not new. And it's also, I would say, impossible to say with 100%, 101% certainty that it should be Aleph or Hey. We can say that most of the apparently the most reliable manuscripts today that we have today say Aleph and not Hey. That's true. But it's also clear there was a tradition that it should be read Dalet Kaf Hey. It's important to understand that how texts work, and what can be understood, and what should not be understood, and what should be understood, what we can assume, what we cannot assume. But it's not reasonable to assume that, despite our incredible facility in preserving the texts, that there is never any omission or error. That's unreasonable. That would be unreasonable to assume that such a thing could not happen.